All right, here we are. So again, hi everyone. Thanks for joining us. I'm Maggie Savoca with OneNJ7. We're a grassroots, all-volunteer organization committed to strengthening democracy, engaging voters, and flipping New Jersey's 7 blue. These meetings are a key part of this effort, giving voters the opportunity to hear directly from the candidates who want to represent us in Congress. We're planning to invite all the candidates to an in-person forum in November after the gubernatorial election. So if you're not already signed up for our newsletter, I would suggest you do. And I'll drop the website, but it's OneNJ7. One is a word, seven's a numeral.org. So over the past few weeks, community members submitted a wide range of thoughtful questions for the candidates. OneNJ7 reviewed them, and we've condensed them down into about 10 questions that will be asked of each candidate. So we're asking every candidate the same questions so that we can kind of get an even playing field or being able to compare answers. So I've asked some people to ask those questions, just so that you're not listening to me talk all the time. So as you heard when you signed on, the meeting is being recorded, and the full set of recordings will be made after the entire series of candidates has spoken. Tina Shaw will be the last candidate to speak, and she is scheduled for Wednesday, the 16th, I believe. We ask that you don't share the questions discussed today with other candidates. I know it's almost impossible to hide anything, but we're just asking, right, to try and give everybody a playing field, a level playing field. So please keep yourself on mute unless you're asking a question. And before we begin the questions, we're going to give Michael a chance to introduce himself to all of you. So Michael, thanks for running and thanks for coming today.
Well, thank you. Thank you to OneNJ7. Thank you to you, Maggie, for organizing. I saw Maggie at the No Kings protest a couple weeks ago, and I watched you, Maggie, as you were welcoming every protester with grace and making sure that they had exactly what they needed. And I remember there was one gentleman that came over to you, Maggie. He was a first-time protester, and he was nervous and he was anxious, and he probably asked 20 questions, and Maggie patiently answered them all. And I saw him later down the street, chanting with a big smile on his face, and he clearly felt included in the movement that we're building. And that's one person who's brought into the tent who wasn't before. And that's the kind of leadership that this country needs. Leaders with dignity, with patience, courage, with kindness, and a sense of shared purpose. So thank you, Maggie, for that one small thing, but I know that you've been doing so much for so long, and thanks for organizing. And thank you from really the bottom of my heart to each of you who has been doing this work for years. I know that long before I got here, y'all have been organizing and working hard to flip this seat and have had amazing successes, and sometimes that have really made us all feel in the gutter. And so I know that I'm here to introduce myself to you, but mostly I'm here to learn from y'all, and build from all of the incredible work that has already been done over the years. So each and every one of us right now, we're on the front lines of democracy. And this November, we need to send a clear message. MAGA has no place in New Jersey. That means electing Democrats up and down the ballot, running up the vote in Union, winning in Somerset, flipping towns in Morris and Hunterdon, building power in Warren and Sussex. I think we have all of the counties represented here on this call. And so it's everybody here who needs to do the work that are doing the work so that when the votes are counted this November across New Jersey 7, we're going to deliver a victory for Mikey and show Tom Kean Jr. that his reign is about to be over. And that's why I'm here. Because I love my country and I love my home state too much not to fight for our future. I know many people have called Tom Kean Jr. an empty suit. And I know that has been true for a long time. Tom Kean Jr., fun fact, was my state House representative growing up. He would show up to take a picture with my dad, who's been president of the local volunteer first aid squad for more than 30 years now. But he was invisible for the rest of the time. So essentially not much has changed in 30 years. But we cannot underestimate him. In a 215-214 vote, he cast the deciding vote that passed Trump's budget. He is one of the most powerful men in America. He's not just an empty suit. He's one of the most powerful men in America. And what does he do with that power? It sickens me. For me, a budget is a statement of our values. It's what we stand for. And Tom Kean Jr. said he'd never cut Medicaid, and then he did. He said he'd protect food for kids, and he cut it. He warned that an energy crisis was coming, and then he gutted clean energy funding. He promised to repeal SALT caps, and then he caved. It's betrayal after betrayal with this man. And what was it for? It was for tax cuts for billionaires and militarizing ICE. If you look just at money for ICE alone, that same money could have funded universal childcare. We're in an affordability crisis, and they made that choice. They made it worse. That is not who we are as Americans. But you'd think with that power that Tom Kean Jr. would at least bring resources home. But he doesn't. He brings back the least amount of federal funding of any member of Congress in the state. He brings back to our state less than 1% of what New Jersey gets, despite representing about 10% of the state. Politics aside, whether you agree with his politics or you don't, we get screwed because we have a bad representative. Imagine if we just got our fair share. We could cut property taxes. We could stop the flooding that happens every year. We could fix our potholes. We could fund our schools. We could guarantee clean drinking water. And yes, in 2025, we still have towns in our district that don't have clean drinking water. It just pisses me off. But Tom Kean Jr. is objectively the worst member of Congress, and unfortunately, he represents us. And one thing you should know about me is I'm a Jets fan, and so I'm used to a lot of losing. But this is too much losing, even for me. So I grew up in New Jersey's 7th Congressional District. This is where I went to public school. It's where I have never learned how to pump my own gas. It's where around my family's dinner table, our family motto was truly, everything is better in New Jersey. People don't believe me when I say that. Every night we would say everything is better in New Jersey because for my family, it's always been true. My grandparents immigrated here with nothing but their son, my dad, in my grandma's belly. They saved enough from sweeping floors to open a clothing store. And by the time I was a kid, my family had achieved the American dream. I'm sure so many of the families on this call have similar stories. So I have fought my entire career to help others achieve
Stop
the
it.
American dream. After college, I found my dream job with a company called Next Street. It's the leading economic growth firm in the country that works with governors and mayors to build the economies of the future and make sure that small businesses and workers have the opportunities to grow. The only problem with my dream job is that it had no interest in me. I applied 6 times, and each time I was rejected. But lucky number 7, I applied and they hired me as the most junior person at the company. And 4 years later, I was named a CEO on March 7th, 2020. I had plans. I had a vision. I had a culture I wanted to build. I was in the process of turning it into an employee-owned company, which I'm proud we successfully did. But then COVID hit, my contracts were torn up, my company was on the brink of collapse because we couldn't access federal programs under Trump. So in this crisis, I brought my team together and said, if we're going to go down, we're going to go down in line with our mission and our values. So we went all across the country in the 30 markets that we were working in, and we volunteered to build the systems that helped 400,000 small businesses who had the same problems as me. 400,000 small businesses get access to $5 billion of funding to keep their doors open and keep their employees employed. Shortly after that, Biden won, and I didn't need to apply 7 times for my next job. His team called me asking me to come on board to implement what we were doing at the local level all across the country. So I had the privilege of going into the Biden administration as an interim leader of the US Small Business Administration in 2021, right when Omicron hit. Everyone remembers that moment when the world shut down again, when our small businesses, when our community centers, when our schools, when our food pantries, when our arts centers, they all shut down and they didn't know what their future was or if they could keep their employees. And in just 2 months, we were able to turn the program around so that the most vulnerable were first in line, the way that it should be. And in New Jersey alone, we were able to deliver funding to 120,000 organizations and saved nearly 900,000 jobs in just a few months. In our district in NJ7, nearly 50% of the population received funding or were employed by somebody who received funding so they kept their jobs because of that leadership. People remember that moment. People remember when government showed up with the urgency and help when they needed. That's how government should always work. And it's proof that when we have good people in government, when it has people with strong values, government can just be so good. So after I left the Small Business Administration, I co-founded the Economic Opportunity Coalition, where I leveraged the relationships that I built at the SBA to bring together 26 US senators, along with the private sector, to invest $12 billion into housing affordability so that nurses and first responders and teachers could afford to live in the communities that they serve. So there are 3 things that you should know about me that I know how to do better than just about anybody. Build economies that work for people, make things more affordable, and actually get stuff done in Washington. We once had a representative, Tom Malinowski, who knew how to do a lot of those things. Those were better days. Everywhere I go, I hear families who can't get by, young couples working long hours and still stretched thin, seniors who are leaving the state because they can't afford to retire here, kids who can't afford to come home after school. New Jersey ranks near the bottom of the country in both affordability and opportunity. Those are two things that cannot work well together. It is broken. We cannot both be the most expensive place and not be a place where we have jobs. But it doesn't have to be this way. We have the opportunity of a lifetime here in New Jersey 7. We can flip the House. We can hold Trump accountable. We can end the Kane dynasty, and we can rebuild the American dream. We can build our vision for the country in our values that is centered right here in New Jersey. So let's bring that home. Let's bring home the money to stop the flooding, fix the roads, and fund our schools. Let's bring home jobs so people can work next door, not have to commute 2 hours for a good job. Let's bring home savings so families can stay together and build wealth right here in New Jersey. Let's bring home a win for Democrats in 2025 and for this seat in 2026. So I know that you all know that loving our country is not a spectator sport. Love is active. It's done by all of us doing the work together. And I'm excited to do that work with you all. So let's bring it home together. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. That obviously told us a lot about you. So some of the questions are going to call for some of the same information, but we'll just move along. And our first person to ask a question is Amy Heiger.
Mute. Thanks, Maggie. Nice to meet you, Michael. And the question I'm going to ask is this. So the first part, you've covered some of this. What in your background and experience would make you suited to represent NJ7 in Congress? But the second part is, why would you be a better choice than the other Democratic candidates?
Yeah, thank you, Amy, and a pleasure to meet you too. Great question. So, there's a couple parts to this question. It's, in order to be the representative, first you got to win. So why am I the best person to win? And then why am I the best person to do the job once I win? So first, why am I positioned to win? I think in order to win in this district, we need a candidate that can, one, beat Tom Kean Jr. on the economy and affordability, two, turn out Democrats while connecting with independents and Republicans, and three, be from here so that they know the local issues and have trust. It's an incredibly diverse district here, but amazingly, there's one thing that unites everybody. 93% of voters in 2024 said that the economy or affordability were one of their top two issues. I have a track record running a business, working with more than 30 governors and mayors to build economies. When people need to build economies and make things affordable for people, they have come to me. I have led at the Small Business Administration. I have led on affordability on housing. I'm the only candidate that brings that deep track record into this race. We've seen in other races since 2024 around the country how important focusing on those issues are. And I'm going to remain disciplined on it. Second, turning people. My dad's a Republican. I grew up having to translate to Republicans and how to bring them along and make them feel included, and being able to reach out while staying true to who I am and what I believe. And he supports me. So that's one of the 11,501 votes that we got to flip. And so, I can empathize that with that. And this is also my home. I have 4 generations of family who live here. I think no other candidate in the field can say all of those things. And I think the second part is, why would I actually be the best to represent this district, which I think should be the most important question. But unfortunately, we have a system where the best person to represent you doesn't always get through. And so why will I be the best representative of this district when I'm there? It's because I have a real track record of getting stuff done in Washington. You heard the numbers. Tom Kean Jr. is last in this state in bringing funding home. He is really bad at his job. We remember when Tom Malinowski was there, and our local governments actually got funding for things. It makes a huge difference. It's the same thing with Andy Kim. It makes a huge difference when you have people who know how to navigate Washington and also know the local issues. Um, and I'll say that right now, especially, there's never been a more important time for us to have somebody represent this district who is day one ready to navigate Washington and deliver home and deliver for the American people across the country.
Great. Thank you, Michael. We're going to move on to our next question, which will be asked by Marietta Carter.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Hi,
Okay.
Marietta.
Hi, Michael. Thank you so much for coming out and talking to us and stepping up to run. We appreciate that. My question for you is, what would your top priorities be as member of Congress? And how could you effectively pursue them as a first-term representative? What committees would you seek to serve on and why?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's a great question, Marietta. So my top priorities are simple. It's bringing home money to fix our roads, our transit, our flooding. It's bringing home jobs next door in technology, clean energy, advanced manufacturing, and it's bringing home savings so that people can afford to live here. That's what I'm going to be focused on. And to do that, I think the three committees that make the most sense fix our roads and our transit, it would be the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee. On jobs, it's Energy and Commerce. And on savings, it's probably the House Committee on Financial Services, and there's a subcommittee on housing and insurance that oversees a lot of the things that would directly impact our wallets. And so that's what I would go for. I'd say that most freshman members of Congress don't necessarily get those because for two reasons. They don't know how to navigate Washington. And also their seat is not as important. There's a reason that Tom Kean Jr. right now is on Energy and Commerce, and it's not because of his quick wit. It's because they wanted to highlight him, and with highlighting him with the elevation, you just saw what he did. He was the one who put through the healthcare bills and the energy bills straight through that Energy and Commerce Committee. And so if we have somebody, this is one of maybe 10 seats that sadly with our system are still up for grabs in any given election. And so these are seats with power. And you can get, as long as you know how to navigate Washington, you can get on these committees that can serve and deliver directly for your people. I'll also say one more thing about it, which is, I've worked with many members of Congress before, and some of the ones that I admire the most are the ones who deliver for the people in their community with their soft power, not just on the committees that they're on, not just with legislation, but in their ability to be an executive and convene people because of the soft power that they hold. And I'll give you an example of one thing that I want to do in my first 90 days. So we have multiple rivers in this district that have debris in them. They flood every single year because debris has fallen over the last 40 years. and we haven't been able to get the Army Corps here to actually remove that debris. And so what needs to happen to actually remove that debris from the rivers is we need the counties to come together, fill out an application for FEMA. We need the state to submit an application, that completed application, into FEMA saying that it's a priority. And then we need the member of Congress to go in and make sure that they actually get it done. And so for decades, we haven't been able to do it. And so one of the first things that I want to do is bring together the county leadership where the rivers run through, bring a representative from FEMA who's an expert so that we can fill out the application together. Nobody leaves the room 8 hours. Nobody leaves the room until we've got a completed application. 8 hours. Send it straight to the new governor's office and get that sent straight to FEMA. And then I'll be on them the next day saying, when are we going to get that through? And so that's something, and I apologize if that's going into way too much detail, but it's how I think about using the power of the office. It's not just in the legislation. It's about how you then work with other stakeholders that you need, because nobody can do anything alone, but how you work with other stakeholders to actually make things happen for the people of this community.
Great. Thank you, Michael. Next question is going to be asked by Barbara Yanni. She's coming on, I see her.
I'm coming on.
Yeah.
Although I'm not sure that I have the question.
No.
We're gonna text it?
I emailed it.
Oh, you emailed it. Oh, I can get that.
You're
Okay.
getting a look behind the scenes right now.
Right. Yeah, right. Okay, here we go. And thank you, Michael, and thank you, Maggie. So, Michael, we need to know, what is your plan for winning the election in NJ7? As you know, it's a district with 20,000 more registered Republicans than Democrats, and where the past two Democratic candidates were unable to win.
Thank you for the question, Barbara, and very well worth the wait. So first I'll say that everything I'm doing right now is to set myself up to win in a general election. This might be controversial, but the only way I would consider my candidacy a failure is if I win the primary but lose in a general election. That would mean that I would have wasted a whole lot of people's time and resources and money for no outcome. And that's not an acceptable outcome for me. So everything that I'm focused on today, I'm sure you'll ask me more about primary candidates, but everything I'm focused on is about how to beat Tom Ken Jr. We lost by 23,000 votes, that's it. 23,000. There's two ways you can overcome it. You can turn out 23,001 more Democrats, or you can flip 11,501 votes. The folks on this call, you do so much to make this a very high turnout district. This is a high turnout district, and we need to continue doing that. But the path to victory ultimately is going to be flipping folks. You're 100% right that there's 20,000 more registered Republicans than Democrats, but that's still only 35% of the district. There's 32% Democrats and 33 or whatever the gap is of that math, percent independents. Independents really do vote like independents. We saw it last cycle, where nearly 5% of voters voted for Kamala, but did not vote for Sue. They vote like independents. So the path is meeting people where they are and moving them. It's 11,501. I'll say again, my dad is a Republican. I've spent my whole life understanding and listening to the other side. I'm going to be laser focused on the issues that matter to everyone, the economy and affordability. I also know every single business and employee across this district who received funding from the SBA when I was leading it. And I've already started visiting those places, going around to introduce myself, and I'm greeted with hugs. Even there's one person who had a big Trump flag out of their factory, and I walked in anyway. He didn't give me a hug. That would be a lie. But he welcomed me in with open arms, and we had a great conversation. And so, having talked to Democrats, having talked to independents, having talked to Republicans all across the district, I think there's a fundamental agreement that we need to focus on economy and affordability, and that we deserve a lot better from our politics. We deserve better from our politics, and people want to know that you're there genuinely to listen to them and relate to them. And I know how to do that, to bring home those 11,501 votes.
Thanks again, Michael. So I am up next on the questioner queue. And my question is, so as an individual representative, what could or would you do to protect New Jersey's immigrants from being arrested, detained, imprisoned, deported without due process or criminal convictions?
Yeah, good question. So, holding the president and administration accountable is a solemn obligation. And I'll talk about something totally different and I'll come back, which is when I was at the Small Business Administration in the Biden administration, when millions of people needed help, I got calls and letters from Republicans all the time holding me accountable. But I also got a call from every Democrat. Every day I got a call from Congresswoman Nydia Velasquez, a Democrat who was chair at the Small Business Committee, and her team holding my feet to the fire. She didn't give a damn that I was a Democrat. She wanted to make sure that our citizens were getting the urgent help that they needed. And that made me better at my job. And it's a huge part of Congress's responsibility, a part that our Congress is not taking seriously anymore, which is accountability and oversight. We need to have a Congress that holds an administration accountable, and provides oversight over it. And so I will be hard on that. I will make sure that they are not violating any law. I will be partnering with legal resources across the country. A huge piece of this battle is Congress and the legal battle coming together and coordinating with each other. There's been over 500 lawsuits against the Trump administration since the start of the administration, and litigators are winning more than 70% of them. And so there needs to be coordination between the folks holding the administration accountable and the legal system that is actively going after illegal activity. And so that's what I'm going to be focused on. The specific duties that I'll swear in as a member of Congress. I will make sure that I uphold those across everything, but especially for our most vulnerable.
Great. Thank you again. Up next, we're going to have Dan Murphy ask a question.
Yes, hello. Because this is one of the key critical swing districts, this is going to be a very expensive campaign. You're also in an extremely expensive media market. So where is your money going to come from? Your campaign funds? What sources would you be tapping? And how much are you going to do to bring the party support? Will you be courting the support of the various county committees, for example?
Yeah. Great question. I'll take this as an opportunity to just say we need to fix our democracy by getting big money out of our politics. The political system is rigged by these PACs, by this corporate money, by these special interests. And we need to get that out. Our voices are more powerful than any money. And we in New Jersey have representatives like Andy Kim who are doing a lot of work now to try to overturn Citizens United, and I'll join him in that effort. Uh, in this primary, we need to make sure that we're electing the person who we want to represent us. In terms of going after funding, it's a lot of hey, Julie and Dan, you got any money? But it's connecting with people and trying to raise money, and making sure that when there's an institution that they are fully values aligned with who I am. I'll say, I am no career politician. I never thought that I would be doing this. And if I lose, I'm gonna be okay. And the one thing that I would never do is sacrifice my values for winning or holding on to a seat. And so if there's ever a time, either now or when I'm in Congress, where someone says, if you don't take this vote, we're gonna primary you, or you've got no chance to win without taking this money. I'd much rather hold on to my values than raise additional funds. And so I'll just say that. In terms of going after the county committees, we have so many amazing people on the county committees that are incredible at mobilizing, that work really, really hard at that. And of course, I need to win over their support. I'm planning on launching what I'm calling the Bring It Home tour. I guess this is now my official launch. I haven't said that to anyone else, but the Bring It Home tour is going to be going to every single town across this district, meeting with people, showing off how beautiful our district is, and highlighting all of the projects that are being left behind because our representative doesn't show up. And creating, elevating those things for other people to see. And so, it's an amazing way, to meet people, hopefully raise some money from that. But the core of what I'm trying to do is connect with folks. And I think that's how someone's going to win. And then in terms of the institutional money coming in, if there's a candidate that can beat Tom Kane Jr. coming out of the primary, which I'm very confident that I am, unless I wouldn't be doing this, the institutional money is going to come. I have regular conversations with those folks, and I'm very confident that we'll get enough money this year to give Tom Kane Jr. To beat Tom Kane Jr. and take him out of office.
Thanks, Michael. Is that a way of saying you're going to give him a run for his money? Sorry, I was feeling
That would be a very punny thing to say,
feeling
but
like,
you're sharper than me,
we
Meg.
needed a little pun in there. So up next is Ellie Sider. She's going to ask a question.
Thanks, Maggie and Michael. Nice to meet you. My question is, would you push for improving U.S. relations with NATO and the EU and other allies, despite the Trump administration's disdain for those alliances?
Good question. Yes. Trump has caused a remarkable amount of instability internationally, and it's hurting our economy here. And my commitment is that I'm going to stay focused in this campaign on New Jersey 7, the economy and affordability, and everything that Trump has done between the tariff war, between threats across the world, pulling out of organizations that have made this world safer, have created a lot of uncertainty. And as I've been on a tour talking with small businesses, the Liberation Day on April 1st, what actually happened then, small businesses, employers here thought of that day as uh, like a hurricane is coming, I think is the right way to articulate it. And so what happens when a hurricane comes? You go to your grocery store and you buy up all of the toilet paper that you can find. Um, and you store it and you make sure you have it for the next 9 months, just in case that you can't leave the house. And so what we're about to see is all of these businesses in our economy that in April bought up 9 months of inventory. All of our prices they're going to have to order more. They'll either be out of stock or our consumer prices are going to go way up. And so, we already see it right now with empty ports. So we need to have House oversight on the trade wars that are going on. We need to make sure that we restore our relationships with our allies. And on foreign policy issues, I'm very glad to have one-on-one conversations with folks about how I see the world, and how we can do that. And also just stating that on the campaign trail, I'm going to be very focused on how those issues are impacting the everyday person in New Jersey 7, which is significantly.
Okay, Michael, thanks again. Sorry, I'm doing some stuff with the chat and unmuting and things like that. I'm just going to ask Joan if you got the question that I just sent, if you could ask it.
Okay. Hi, Michael. This is great, and I'm very impressed. What would you or could you do to help those who stand to lose Medicaid, SNAP, and other benefits due to this horrible budget cuts?
Yeah. Thanks, Joan. It's a devastating question. It's a devastating question. I think first, it's what makes this race so important. It's one of about 10 across the country that could actually decide the majority of the House in 2026. And a top priority needs to be undoing what the Trump administration has done if we're able to win back, the Senate too. And eventually, we need president in office in 2029. I'll say in the meantime, the way that the bill was written, there's a whole lot of uncertainty. And what happens after that bill is written is the administration is going to take it and interpret it and do a whole bunch of rulemaking about how this thing is actually implemented. And that's where we can have an influence in the meantime. And the Energy and Commerce Committee is going to oversee that, which is one of the reasons that I want to be on it. And we need to make sure that we are influencing the actual rulemaking and regulations. It's not the most exciting thing to talk about, but it's like how this thing is actually implemented is going to make a massive difference. And so when I'm there, whether we have the majority or not, it's about holding folks accountable and making sure that we're pushing them on the rulemaking. And then it's going to be about however this thing is actually implemented, making sure that I use my platform, that I connect with all of the local organizations that have connections with folks who might lose their healthcare insurance or food benefits, and make sure that they have the information so that they can still access it. Like it's such a disgusting bet on humanity that basically they're making a bet that people can't get through paperwork. It's disgusting. It's really disgusting. And so we need to be able to mobilize resources so that people can get through that. Whatever that rulemaking is, it's got to be as easy as possible, and we will have influence over that. And then we got to make sure people understand those rules, and we give them the supports that they need to get through it. It's quite similar, actually. When I was before I was leading the SBA, when I was going around at Next Street around the country, the way that the Paycheck Protection Program, the Small Business Relief Program, was implemented was super confusing for people. So many people were eligible for it, but they didn't know how to make it through the paperwork. And so what we did is the systems that we set up, just to expand on that a little bit more, the systems that we set up were equipping the places that have the community relationships with people. We built out networks of churches, and community organizations and places like that, places where people trusted, to spread the information and to teach, a lot of train the trainer exercises to make sure that they had the capacity to work with the people who were impacted in my situation, who were able to access funding. In this situation now, it's about making sure that they can get through the process of Medicaid and SNAP.
Thank you. Thanks.
Yeah. Thanks again, Michael. So I'm going to finish out the predetermined questions by asking you, if you were elected and the Democrats had the majority in Congress, what actions would you favor to reverse Trump's policy? Would they include impeaching and or removing Trump and other administrative officials?
Great
Administration officials.
Great question, Maggie. So, I'll again just state it. You take a solemn oath when you take on this role to hold the president as a co-equal branch of government, to hold the president and his administration accountable, and nothing can be taken off the table. And the president has been impeached twice already. We have to take that seriously. But I'm also not going to play political games or do political theater for the point of it. I'm going to be focused on holding them accountable for what they're doing, and then delivering for people in New Jersey 7. That's got to be the focus. And so, yes, I will hold them accountable. Nothing is off the table, but where I'm going to be focused is really delivering for New Jersey 7 residents.
Great, thank you. I think we can all agree that's what we want. So it is 5:49. We've booked an hour for the meeting. I'm sure people have other questions, Michael. So if you're okay with that, I'll open it up and just do a queue of who raises their hand.
I will stay on until the final question is asked.
Oh, don't make that promise. I see Yvonne has her hand raised. Yvonne, you want to unmute and ask Michael a question?
Yes, thank you, Maggie. Hi, Michael. I've enjoyed listening to you. I have a concern about disinformation and the disinformation that the Kane dynasty, as you put it, could bring forth. And that is on two accounts. One account is the fact that they, in order for you to do what you said you wanted to do, which, with respect to the big bad bill, reverse some of that, there is the revenue side. So somebody's going to have to step up and say, hey, guys, we can't afford all of these tax cuts. So they will probably, if you take that position, which I don't know if you would or not, so that's part of my question, but if you do take that position, they're going to say that you're raising taxes. The other part of my question is the whole immigration question and the due process issue with the courts. And I just wonder, they're going to say you want to let all these immigrants in and all the stuff. They're going to accuse you of that, whether you stand for that or not. So I'd like to know how you would address those two pieces of misinformation. Thank you.
Yeah. So your question is, there's a broad question about disinformation, and then there's a question about um, uh, what we do with the revenue side of the equation for the U.S. economy, and then what we do on immigration. Is that right?
That is correct, Michael. Thank you.
So disinformation is obviously a massive, massive issue. We need, an issue that is not in my stump, um, uh, but is going to be probably the biggest issue that we face over the next year, 5 years, 10 years, is the advancement of artificial intelligence and how we allow that to both spread disinformation, the power that it has, the power it has over governments, and then also what happens to our economy. I don't have the answers for you, Regina, and I will make this pledge today that when you ask me a question and I don't know the answer to how you solve it, I'm going to tell you that I don't know the answer of how you solve disinformation and what the future of artificial intelligence looks like. But I do know, leading a company, leading an agency, that what you need is the experts around you to help inform you to make really good decisions. And so that's what I'll do around that. Around revenue, it's incredibly popular, actually, the tax, and this bill is super unpopular, and it's because it has tax cuts on the wealthy and corporations. And yeah, well, the Biden tax policy was actually quite popular. You don't raise taxes on anybody making more than $400,000. Did I say that the inverse way? Somebody will have to roll back the tape on that.
We know what you meant. You don't raise taxes on people making under $400,000.
Thank you, Maggie.
Yep.
So I mean, that's an incredibly popular policy. But I'll also say one other thing about revenue, which is, we've lost the American dream in this country. And we have to remember how it was actually built. It wasn't something that was signed into law in 1776. The American dream did not exist in the United States until after World War II. Because what happened? We invested in the innovation of industry here. And we built in programs like the GI Bill, like Social Security, like Medicaid, like Medicare, like the exact programs that they are taking away from us. That's what created the American dream. That's what created a booming economy. If you look at a graph of what the middle class looked like after we did that, allowing people to take risks because there was a social safety net, that's how innovation happened. That's how innovation happened for the many. And so the number one way in my mind to raise revenues in this country is to reinstate the things that make the American dream possible. And your last question around immigration, I'm in full support of making sure that our borders are controlled, that people are not coming in illegally in masses. I'll tell a quick. I'll try to be quick. Sometimes I'm long-winded, as y'all are learning about me in my first Zoom, and that's the first time I've gotten a lot of head nods. So So my father, he is a wonderful, amazing uh, first responder. He was a few months ago. He was driving an ambulance, and he was going in reverse, and there was a cop car that was next to him, and uh, my dad reversed and accidentally took out the front door of that cop car, and they replaced that front door of the cop car with just a white door. And so on this cop car, there was a white door that used to say POL, and then on the back door, there was ICE. And so there was a car driving around town that said ICE on it. And everybody went berserk. Everybody said, hide your gardeners, hide the people who are raising your kids, hide the people who are part of your families, that are part of your communities. And so when it hits home on immigration, the people who've been part of our families and our communities for a long time, this is going to be a popular thing for the Democrats. If they start taking away people's workforce, if they start taking away people's community like they're already doing, it's going to be very unpopular for them. And so what we need to work on is sound immigration policy that provides pathways for people. What they're doing right now is completely inhumane. There's this story last week about 8 people who were taken and put in a shipping container and dropped off. They're from South America and they're dropped off somewhere in Africa. They're not going to survive. They have nothing. We have to have values as a country. And if that means that I lose some votes of people who say that I'm weak, uh, so be it. Those aren't my voters.
Thank you, Michael.
Yep, thanks, Michael. We have Tony up with the next question.
Hi, Michael. I have a somewhat melodramatic question for you, given the world we live in today and the fact that your election isn't just about, NJ7. It's really about the fate of our whole country and our whole democracy. You mentioned your Bring It Home tour. I'd like to hear a little bit more about what you're going to do in terms of spending every single day between now and November 26th working for every single vote across the state, because this isn't obviously an ordinary election, it's an absolute emergency. So maybe you could tell a little bit more about that tour and a little bit more about what you're willing to sacrifice, what you're willing to put into this race to win it.
Yeah. Yeah. Great question, Tony. I'll tell you, there will not be a person who outworks me. That will not happen. Um, I stepped down from CEO of my company. I'm doing this full time. So from the day that I wake up, and my partner's on the call, probably rolling her eyes at me, until I go to sleep and I'm in bed, I'm focused on this. The Bring It Home tour is going to be a piece of this. The idea is connecting with people we'll be connecting over pizza. The theme of it's going to be like making sure that everybody gets their fair slice of the pie. We'll be delivering pizza to the local fire departments and police departments. And then we're going to go to the places that where projects are actually not getting funded, that are bipartisan in nature. It's like nobody wants the rivers to flood. Nobody wants our potholes unfixed. Nobody wants to not have clean water. Nobody wants to sit on a New Jersey Transit and be stuck there for 2 hours. Nobody wants these things. And so it's focusing on the things that are not that bring us together, and then creating really good content out of it so that the work that I'm doing today, when voters start to engage, let's say 9 months from now, they can see all of that. They can see how they're, how I care about them, because I do. I do. And I'm going to spend every day making sure that everybody knows that I care about them. My worst day on the campaign, I was out in Washington, in Warren County, because there was an EPA report that there was a record level of PFAS, which is forever chemicals, in the water in Washington. It's horrendous. People were there. There's one woman who told the story about how she was just diagnosed with cancer for the 4th time. There were people who were saying that their babies had birth defects like defecating plastic. What's happened there is horrendous, and Tom Kane Jr. was nowhere to be found, is still nowhere to be found. He doesn't know how to solve that problem. And I'll tell you, there's about 180 homes in that community. I'm not going to get a single one of those votes. There's no way I do. But I'm telling you, one of the first things I do is making sure that they get clean water. And that's how I'm going to approach every single day of this campaign, is how can I make sure that I can make the people's lives in this district better.
Thank you.
Great. So we don't have any more raised hands. I think that's a great way to wrap up the conversation today. Again, I want to thank Michael for coming out and answering all of our questions and a few off the cuff. Really appreciate everybody's time. Thanks for coming